waiting for us. Good morning. How are you doing? Reggie Jones-Sawyer.
Walking into prisons has become a familiar experience for Assemblymember Reginald Jones-Sawyer.
Just as I remembered it when I came here about 5 years ago.
In office since 2012, he remains more committed than ever to disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline.
You know, I have a lot of people that are really religious and they talk about, forgiveness. Right. But when it comes to people who get incarcerated, they're unforgiving. When I first got into the assembly, I had every private prison come into my office, and they told me by the time I left, because I was a 12-year member, they would need 10,000 more prison beds. And I said, how are you able to figure that out? They said by the number of third graders that can't read at third grade level, they can figure out 100% how many more prison cells they need to build. Well, I suggested that we educate all of them so we can figure out how many more college seats we need to build in the next 10 years.
After years of making the point that education and diversion programs are the best option to not only save our youth, but also to invest in the economic well-being of California.
And it's time to stop locking up our children and start investing in their future.
The Assembly member secured over $37 million in the state budget to establish the Youth Reinvestment Grant Program.
The Youth Reinvestment Fund is about return on investment and investing in our young people at an early age, because we're going to get much more out of it. They'll become productive citizens, they'll pay taxes, we won't be spending money to build more prisons, and that's more money that goes back into our general fund for other things. We got to work real hard to keep you out, and you out, because it could be close to $250,000 a year that I could save as opposed to spending $100. It might even be more.
His mission now is to raise awareness about the goal of the program and the value of using trauma-informed and community-based interventions instead of arrest and incarceration.
The trauma that a lot of these young people have felt before they went to prison has determined their outcome. And so if you're a young person and you've now seen your brother killed in some gang activity, you've seen domestic violence, you've seen drug deals, you've seen a lot of things that a normal adult would be traumatized by, and then you're in the first grade class and ask you 1 + 1 is what, and then you're not responding, or you act out. You know what that's from? It's because you're still in shock, you're in trauma. We have this attitude that young people, when they make a mistake, they just need to pay for it, and that will be the deterrent. The real deterrent is diversion. The old way didn't work. It's become too costly. We were filling our prisons with people who probably shouldn't be there if they had the right early childhood intervention.
The Youth Reinvestment Grant Program focuses on improving the outcomes of vulnerable youth populations, people like Jesse Vasquez.
So my name is Jesse Vasquez. I'm currently 35 years old. I was 17 years old when I attempted to murder a man in Santa Ana, California. I was sentenced to 32 years to life in prison, and I've been in prison 18 years now.
Jesse's now the editor-in-chief of the San Quentin News, an award-winning newspaper at San Quentin Prison and one of only a handful of its kind around the country. Jesse was a regular child until his world crumbled down around him when he lost his father to cancer at age 14. His father had been a hard worker and the sole provider for his family. When he died, that responsibility fell on Jesse's young shoulders, and it was just too much to bear.
I was under a lot of stress. I just had to do it because I figured, this is the only way we're going to survive.
Jesse received no help and, regrettably, found solace among the wrong crowd.
I dropped out of school when I was 14 years old. There was one counselor, and she used to have me, crushing cans after school. I was trying to earn my way on a trip to Washington, D.C., but I had to leave school because my father died, so I had to start working. So there was no support programs, for us as far as we were aware of. After I came to prison, or juvenile hall, I realized that there was alternatives there. There was a lot of community organizations, but we weren't aware of it in the neighborhood.
It wasn't until he arrived at San Quentin, after transferring from another prison, that Jesse found the kind of support he needed and didn't know it. Guidance and mentorship through a program that helps them get an education and useful skills. His writings have even been published in the Washington Post. His sentence was commuted recently, making him eligible for earlier parole, which he received, meaning he will soon be set free. He is anxious to give back.
So I want to go in there and help the inner city, right? Especially when it comes to the youth. I have an idea as far as, how to help them out, getting them involved. When I first came to prison, I realized that I lack discipline. I lack structure, structured thinking, structure in my life, right, and organization.
And that help, which the Youth Reinvestment Grant Program is seeking to further support, is what aided young Sam Lauderdale, a student at Sacramento State who became the first in his family to attend a 4-year school, something he would never have imagined when he got an offer from some peers to go rob a house when he was in middle school, an offer he declined. Soon, he was engaged with the program Improve Your Tomorrow.
This program helped me a lot. Like, it helped me with self-esteem, it helped me with my academics, helped me become a better man, all that good stuff. And it did that through just persistence and the love and attention that they showed me on a daily basis. A lot of young men in the communities that I grew up in don't receive that type of attention.
Sam also credits his mom, who raised him by herself.
My mom, even though she worked a lot, she did a very good job of instilling morals and values into me that helped me determine in situations like the one where I was in middle school, where it could have been really bad for me. I determined for myself that, okay, maybe this is something I don't want to get into. She's excited. Every time she goes to work, she's like, that's my son, he's about to graduate pretty soon.
While they're in different life circumstances, Jesse and Sam both agree that being positive is key.
I've seen a lot of bad and negative, and it can put your mind frame in a state to where you only see negative. And if you get in a mind state like that, it's kind of hard to function properly on a day-to-day. So I would just tell them to stay positive, keep your head up, and everything will work out with enough consistency and hard work.
You know, life is unfair. The world isn't fair. Things happen. You know, sadness is going to happen, tragedy is going to happen. Whether it's now or later, it's inevitable. It's how you deal with it, you know, that determines where you end up at later on in life. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to cope with my stress, you know, and my tragedy. But that doesn't mean that you can't prepare for it, you know, and be ready, you know, for when it does happen. It's like, okay, this is just part of life, you know.
Assemblymember Reginald Jones-Sawyer insists the answer to keeping our youth on the right path is obvious.
The most important thing we need to do is education. The most important thing we need to do is to help with trauma-informed care. The most important thing we need to do is do wraparound services for our young people to make them better, so that this big, wide, gaping pipeline that we call the school-to-prison pipeline, we can slowly start to close it.